The longer a person is missing, the harder it is to find them.
That was the last that anyone saw her. That was it.
It's not known whether there's foul play involved.
17-year-old Jamie Griffin has not been seen since April 2nd, 1982.
And it's just like she never existed.
Mysterious disappearance of a 28-year-old woman.
At this point, we're treating it as a missing person.
If anyone has any information, you are urged to call the Lowell Police.
I feel that possibly my daughter has come to harm.
In the heart of Texas, where the wind whispers tales of the past and secrets linger like ghosts in the night, the city of Fort Worth stood as a bastion of Southern charm and Texan pride. Its streets, once trodden by cowboys and pioneers, now bustled with the energy of modernity. Yet beneath its gleaming facade, shadows lurked, secrets waiting to be unearthed, mysteries begging to be solved. Among these mysteries, none cast a darker pall over the city than the enigmatic case of the Fort Worth missing trio. It was a story that transcended time, weaving itself into the very fabric of Fort Worth's history, its tendrils stretching through the corridors of power and the hearts of its citizens. For the case of the three missing girls is yet to be solved. In the early hours of December 23, 1974, just before midday, Rachel Trlica, Renee Wilson, and Julie Ann Moseley embarked on a Christmas shopping trip. Moseley decided to join them spontaneously, expressing her reluctance to spend the day alone. Upon hearing she needed permission, Moseley hurried inside and sought her mother, Rayanne's approval. Later, Moseley's mother reminisced,
I was in the midst of tough times, working for an electrical contractor while separated from my husband. It was a bitter period. I remember Julie's call vividly, asking to go to Seminary South. I said, no, you don't have any money, you just stay home. I knew Renee and her mother, but I really didn't know Rachel. But she kept whining about how she wouldn't have anybody to play with. I finally gave in, but I told her to be home by 6.
The older girls, particularly Renee, aimed to return by 4 p.m., since Renee had a Christmas party planned with her new boyfriend, who had gifted her a promise ring earlier that day. She wanted ample time to prepare for the occasion. The girls first went to a surplus store in Fort Worth to pick up some layaway items Renee had waiting. From there, they headed to the Seminary South Shopping Center. Several witnesses reported seeing the girls at the mall that day. When the girls did not return home, their families became concerned and went to Seminary South to look for them. They arrived around 6 p.m. and found the girls' car parked in the Sears upper-level parking lot. It seemed the girls had returned to the car that afternoon, as the gifts they bought were inside. The oldest of the girls, Mary Rachel Trlica, née Arnold, was 17 years old at the time of her disappearance. She was known to go by her middle name, Rachel. She was a white female, 5 feet 6 inches, 1.68 meters tall, weighing 108 pounds, 49 kilograms, with long brown hair, green eyes, a chipped upper front tooth, and a small scar on her chin. Rachel was a married high school student at Southwest High School in Fort Worth and drove a 1972 Oldsmobile 98 the car the girls took to the mall on the day they disappeared. At the time she vanished, Rachel had been married to her husband, Tomi Trlica, for about 6 months and wore a wedding ring. Lisa Renee Wilson was 14 years old at the time of her disappearance. She was known to go by her middle name, Renee. She was a fair-skinned white female, 5 feet 2 inches, 1.57 meters tall, weighing 110 pounds, 50 kilograms, with light wavy brown hair, brown eyes, and a scar on the inside of one of her thighs. On the day she disappeared, she was wearing bluish-purple hip hugger pants, a white pullover sweatshirt with "Sweet Honesty" in green letters, though some reports mention a pale yellow t-shirt with green letters, red and white Oxford shoes, and a promise ring with a single clear stone. The youngest of the girls, Julie Ann Moseley, was 9 years old at the time of her disappearance. She was a white female, 4 feet 3 inches, 130 meters tall, weighing 85 pounds, 39 kilograms, with shoulder-length sandy blonde hair and blue eyes. She had a small scar under her left eye, a scar in the middle of her forehead, and a scar on the back of her calf. On the day she disappeared, she was wearing a red shirt, dark jeans, and red tennis shoes. When the girls failed to turn up, the police were called, and the case was quickly handed to the Youth Division of the Fort Worth Police Department's Missing Persons Bureau. Investigators initially presumed the girls were runaways. The next day, however, Tomi Sedminek, Rachel's husband, received a letter that seemed to have been written by her.
I know I'm going to catch it, but we had to get away. We're going to Houston. See you in about a week. The car is in Sears' upper lot. Love, Rachel.
While the addressed envelope was written in pencil, the letter itself was in ink on a sheet of paper, wider than the envelope. It was addressed to Thomas A. Trlica instead of the informal Tommy that Rachel usually called him. Rachel was written in the upper left-hand corner of the envelope, initially misspelled with the L as a lowercase e, which was then corrected. The postmark didn't show a city, just a blurred zip code that appeared to be 76083. The 3 seemed either backward, like it was applied by a hand-loaded stamp, or a partial 8. It's assumed the zip code was meant to be either 76083 from Eliasville, Texas, or 76088 from Weatherford, Texas. In the following decades, handwriting experts across the nation, including from the FBI, have found inconclusive results regarding the legitimacy of the letter. Despite receiving the letter, the girls' families did not believe it was written by Rachel or that the girls had run away.
Well, 9 days ago, I thought maybe they had just went somewhere, but now I don't believe they have. I believe they've been picked up by somebody and been held, and that they've been hurt or something.
You haven't given up hope, though?
No, no hope give up. Just want them to come on back home.
Julie Ann Moseley's mother, Rayanne, stated, "I know my daughter and I know those other girls, and they are not runaways." Judy Wilson, Renee's mother, added, "I could have told you that night that they didn't run away. Renee wanted to go to that party, and no 9-year-old is going to run off 2 days before Christmas. Everybody knows that." Frances Langston, Rachel's mother, believed the girls had been abducted, saying, "A lot of people may think they left with someone they knew, but I'll always think, until the day I die, that the girls were taken." Not willing to give up, the families continued their search by distributing missing person flyers throughout the state and contacting newspapers across the country. Eventually, tips began to come in, and witnesses began to come forward. In early 1975, a young man claiming to be an acquaintance of Rachel's reported that he saw the three girls in the record department of a store inside the mall just before they disappeared. He stated that he and Rachel saw each other and spoke briefly, and that another person seemed to be with the girls. Around the same time, some women's clothes were found in Justin, Texas, but it was determined that they did not belong to the girls. Frustrated with the police investigation, the families hired a private detective named John Swaim. In August 1975, Swaim discovered that a 28-year-old man who had worked at a local store where Rachel had applied for a job before her disappearance was making obscene phone calls in the area. The man was using his position to obtain information from young women who had either submitted job applications or been listed as references. 6 female job applicants had been receiving obscene calls. This man had also once lived in the neighborhood of Rachel's parents, but had moved away shortly before Rachel married. Despite these findings, nothing came of the investigation into this suspect. In April 1975, John Swaim went to Port Lavaca, Texas, with 100 volunteers to search under local bridges after receiving a tip that the girls had been killed and taken there. However, no trace of the girls was found. A year later, an oil drilling crew discovered 3 skeletons in a field in Brazoria County. Swaim had the bones compared to X-rays and dental records of the girls, but it turned out that the bones belonged to a teenage boy about 15 to 17 years of age and 2 other females who were not identified as any of the girls. In March 1976, a psychic contacted one of the families, claiming that the girls could be found near an oil well. For unclear reasons, searchers focused on the small community of Rising Star, Texas, but nothing was ever found. In 1979, John Swaim died from a drug overdose, which was ruled a suicide. Upon his death, he ordered all of his files on the case to be destroyed. In the spring of 1981, police investigators were called to a location in Brazoria County after human remains were found in a swampy area. After a month of investigation, they discovered that the bones did not belong to the 3 girls. In January 2001, the case was reopened and assigned to homicide detective Tom Bocher, who believes the girls left the mall with someone they trusted. We can say that they were at one point seen with one individual, but we believe there was more than one involved. In 2018, 2 cars were raised from Benbrook Lake because they were thought to have a connection to the case.
I think we all know what I'm hoping to find. You know, we're hoping to resolve this matter, put it behind us.
These efforts, however, yielded no results. Over the years, investigators have continued to search through Texas, exploring hundreds of back roads.
I don't think that we're ever going to find the bodies, but you got to keep trying, right?
The families have walked creek beds and country roads, always coming up with nothing. Decades after the disappearance, there have been no reports of new developments in the case.